So,
Who start?
hi, Mr. Duncan.
start?
Yeah. We are the reporters from the GES Education, and I'm Frank. I'm 13 years old. I'm now studying the junior grade 2. And I've learned that you did a lot for the underprivileged students, and I got 2 questions for you. So first, what did you do to reduce the discriminations between the students, and what the role should the government play during the whole education system?
Say the second one. Give me the second question.
Yeah. What's the role should the government play in the yeah?
That's a great question, and your English is amazing. And I'm thrilled to be with you guys. And my son is 14, you're 13?
Yeah.
So my son's a year older, my daughter's 2 years older, 16. So all my life I've seen what wasn't fair. The kids that were born a little poor maybe their parents didn't have as good an education. They were given schools that weren't as good. They had less resources. And it's never a kid's fault if they're born poor. That's just their family. And the only way to help kids be successful is by giving them a great education. So my mother started this work before I was born. She raised my sister and brother and I, helping her at her program, trying to help the kids. And I just saw these kids as great kids that were as smart as me and worked harder than me and were really talented. They just had to have a chance. So it's been my life's work. It's been my life's passion. What can the government do to help? There's a number of things. Making sure that kids that need the most help get the best teachers. Making sure that kids have access to technology. Making sure if kids, we have kids where I'm from who are hungry, who don't get enough to eat. Making sure we feed them. Making sure if they need eyeglasses, that they have access to eyeglasses. If they have dental problems, that they have access to that. So there are things that my parents could do for me, but not every kid's that lucky to have parents who can do that for them. And so that's where the government can step in and help. Who's up?
Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, Mr. Duncan, and I'm Michael, and I'm 11 years old. What I want to ask you is, in China we have the same teacher and classmates throughout primary and secondary school. What is the advantages of optional class system in the U.S.?
So I actually love the idea of staying with teachers for more than 1 year. And it helps if it's a good teacher, if you like your teacher. And I think you guys got some great teachers here. But I think teachers for me are like part of family. And to build a relationship, to get to know that teacher over time, for them to know your strengths and weaknesses to help you, rather than starting over every year. How many years do you stay with the same teacher?
Maybe 3 or 4.
3 or 4, yeah. I actually love that idea. In education, there's never enough money, but staying with the same teacher, that doesn't cost more money, is it? That's free. It's just sort of a strategy. So having that teacher get to know you and get to know your strengths and weaknesses, get to know your family, your parents, I think there are huge advantages there. I tried to push some of that in the United States. I wish we would have done more of it. So I think sometimes, what's the downside? Maybe if it's not a good fit, maybe if you and your teacher don't get along, there should be somebody to do something else. But I think most teachers do an amazing job, and having that relationship, I think, is hugely important. So I love that idea.
So, hello, Mr. Duncan. I'm Richardson, and I'm 9 years old. In China, our parents and teachers always tell us something about ethic. But as an American educator, what do you think is the most important character for a boy like me?
I want kids to be happy. I want you to be happy. And that for me is the most important thing. And if you're happy, if you're working hard, if you're helping other people, then you're going to be in pretty good shape. I think where kids aren't happy, when there's too much pressure or too much whatever, that's hard. You guys should be having some fun. When you get to be my age, you can worry about all the problems. But you guys, children need to be able to be children. So that for me is the biggest thing. Secondly, I think, again, the more you guys can learn to help others and to not just think about yourself and your family, but think about helping other kids, I think that's really, really important. Learning how to work hard is important. And I think the biggest thing that teachers can do and parents can do is, I think every one of you, every every human being has something they love, has a passion, has a genius. And it's sort of helping you discover, maybe not at 9 years old, but at some point, what's your passion? What do you most love to do? And I'll just say for myself, I've had two loves. I love to play basketball, and I was lucky enough to play professionally for 4 years, and I've loved kids and education. And those are the only two jobs I've ever had in my life. Was I played basketball for a while, and then I've worked with kids in education. So I've always been able to do what I've loved most, and that's a real gift. There are a lot of adults do things that they don't necessarily love. Maybe they have to make a living, they have to support a family. And helping you discover what's your gift, what would you love to do the rest of your life, and then helping you become as good at that as you can.
Hello, Mr. Duncan, and my name is Jensen. Now I am 12 years old, and I want to ask you that what is the most important thing in your mind is of the education, and which skills do you think is the most important skill that children should learn? Thank you.
You guys are amazing reporters. I think the most important skill you can learn is to love to learn. And it's not, reading's important, math's important, science is important, but the rest of your life you're going to have to keep learning. The day I stop learning, the day I stop reading, the day I stop, I'm here, this is my first trip to China. I've learned so much. I wish I'd been here before. Unfortunately, I have to leave here and go back to the airport, but the day we stop learning is the day we become obsolete. We're useless. We're not helpful. And so if you love to learn, if you're always going to get better till the day you die, you should just keep learning, keep learning, keep learning. So that for me is by far the most important skill, is to always be hungry to learn. And that it not be a task or something you have to do, but something you want to do. I was excited to come here. I was a little scared. I was a little nervous. But I was excited to come here and learn something different. I've learned so much, and I hope to come back and keep learning. And I hope, again, until I die, I hope to keep growing and keep improving myself. If you do that, whatever you do, you're going to be in great shape.
Good afternoon, Mr. Duncan, and I'm Achilles, and I'm 13 years old. And I have to ask you a question. Education is basically have two different aspects. One is efficiency and one is quality. And for instance, for Chinese education, efficiency is more about to give students what they need as soon as possible and to help them success rapidly. But only few institutions care about what the students really learned by heart. And so it's very hard to balance efficiency and quality. But what did you do to try to balance the educational efficiency and quality? Thank you.
Yeah. So I think, and this is going to come more with technology in your classrooms, and you maybe already have, hopefully, access to technology, that historically teachers, how many kids in your class roughly?
40 maybe?
40? 20, 30, 40? So in the past, what a teacher did is a teacher tried to teach to the middle of that class, and sort of teach the average. And then kids who were a little further ahead maybe weren't getting as much help as they needed. Kids who were a little further behind maybe didn't get as much help as they needed. So I think with technology, we can start to teach not just the average of that class, but teach to every kid's skills and abilities and help. So if kids can move faster, let them move faster. If kids take a little bit more time to learn something, let them take more time. For me, the goal is mastery. It's really understanding stuff. So let's just take algebra, for example. Maybe you're a whiz in algebra and you can learn algebra in 4 months. Great, you go do it. Maybe I struggle a little bit in math. Maybe it might take me 8 months. It might take me 9 months. It might take me 12. That's okay. I need some extra time. I need time on the weekends. I need time at home. But I think that's the biggest thing, is we should start to where kids can go fast and fly, let them fly, where kids need a little bit more help and support. And it's not a right or a wrong. You might be better at me in math. Maybe I'm a good writer. Maybe I'm good at something else. But I think that if we can get to the point where we're teaching not to the average, but to each kid's individual strengths and weaknesses, and helping them progress when they're ready. So the way I talk about is competency. Are you competent at something? Have you mastered something? And not seat time, not how long you're sitting in your seat in class, but do you really know the material? And then you should be able to go.
Hi, Mr. Duncan. My name is Bill, and I have prepared you a question.
Most of the Chinese students are educated in a method that focus more on tests. Teacher hardly teach you expand knowledge, so somebody thinks that this method is useless and would kill creativity. What's your opinion of that?
I think in education there's always there's a middle ground. So I think it is important to assess kids and test and find out what they know. But I also think there can be too much testing sometimes. And I think you never want to stifle, you never want to stop creativity. And I think as you guys get older, I don't think you're going to go find this job or that job. I think you're going to go find a problem to solve. You're going to find out what you're interested in and what you're passionate about. And you're going to go solve that problem. And so you got to be creative. You got to be entrepreneurial. We talked about you got to be willing to learn the rest of your life, right? I want my wife and I, when we have two kids a little bit older than you guys, I'll ask them at the dinner table, what did you fail at today? And I actually want my kids failing. Why do you think I want my kids failing? To learn from it, right? Because if you're not failing, it means stuff's a little too easy, right? You're not being pushed. And so whether it's room to be creative, room to be entrepreneurial, room to fail and make mistakes and struggle and learn, those are the kinds of skills. You guys aren't going to go, again, find this one job. You're going to go find a problem. You guys are going to help solve that problem. But you're going to fail a bunch of times. You're going to make mistakes. The final thing I'd say is that you got to be able to work as part of a team. Like, you're not going to solve it by yourself, most problems. You're going to solve it by talking amongst each other. And you got a good idea, and you got a good idea, and you figure it out together. So those are the kinds of things I think education systems need to think about. Creativity, problem solving, working as a team, collaboration, and I use the word resiliency, being able to fail, learn from it, and keep going.
Okay, so hi, Mr. Duncan, and the question that I've prepared for you is in contemporary society, there is an issue of the addiction to mobile games, and what's your opinion on this issue?
Those devices, right? Those phones, yeah. It was funny. I didn't take any of my electronics. I didn't take them any on this trip at all. I have no electronics with me. It's the first time in a long time. It's really freeing. I like it. So too much of anything is too much. So what's the definition of addiction? I think part of a definition would be like if you can't stop, if you can't resist, if it's controlling you rather than you controlling it. So I have no problems if kids are playing some, computer games or watching a little TV or, I love to play basketball, I go do that. But if that's dominating your life, if that's all you're doing, if you're not able to study, you're not able to interact with people, that's when it gets to be a problem. So I think anything in moderation I'm okay with, but too much of it is not fantastic. There's obviously some games that are educational, where kids are learning, some things where you can, Minecraft and other things I think are actually pretty interesting. But I do think there's a bunch of stuff that is probably wasted time, taking you away from other things, and you guys are going to grow up with these phones in your hands your whole life. We didn't have those, and it's a lot of temptation. That's a lot of responsibility. I think that's hard, and I feel a little sorry for you guys. I think that's a hard thing to do. I didn't have those kinds of temptations, and so it was a little bit easier. So you guys having the maybe learning the self-discipline of, here's a time to play and here's a time to work and here's a time whatever, and being able to hold yourself to that. That's a hard lesson, but you guys sort of have to learn it at an earlier age than what I did.
Good afternoon, Mr. Duncan. I'm Yang Ziqing, 12 years old, and I have a question for you that in China, some students in primary school feel the courses are too difficult to learn and to keep up with them, but some students think they're too easy. Yeah. So what do you think about hierarchical teaching? I mean, the different students in different levels and to study in different grades or classes and to learn different things.
little bit similar to your question, that I do think I think everything you said is true. Some classes are probably way too easy for some kids. Some classes might be way too hard for some kids, right? So kids need different amounts of help. And I think it's important where kids are learning fast and are really gifted at something, let's keep them moving. Let's accelerate them. Let's let them keep going. And we need to do a better job of that. But I also think it's very important we do a better job of helping the kids who need more help. So whether that's more tutoring, whether that's more assistance by their parents, whether it's somebody else helping them out, whatever it might be, I don't want kids to ever think things are too hard. I think it's good to have stuff hard. It's good to be challenged, but you don't want to feel overwhelmed. Because when you're a kid and you feel overwhelmed, what happens? You start to be a little discouraged, and then you might say, that's not for me, or that's too hard, that's for somebody else, I can't do that. And that's really not true, but when kids start to think that, and then they internalize it, then they start to give up on some things. And so I never want to see kids feel overwhelmed or feel like they're a failure or feel that they're discouraged or it's too hard. I want them to be challenged, but I want them to know that where I need some help, I can get some help. I went to college, and I had gotten great grades in high school and went to great high school, but some of my college classes were really hard, and I struggled at first. And I had to go to my professor. They were called office hours. I'd go see my professor and say, can you help explain some of this stuff to me? Can you help me? And I was a little nervous to do that at first, but they were really helpful, and that helped my confidence. So having people who can help, whether it's you guys that are struggling or in college, I think that's so important. These are great questions. I probably have time for one or two more. Any other questions you guys might have? Yes, sir.
Okay. What's your method of educating your children? Since you have mentioned your children, they are older than us. So what's your method of educating them?
I should have brought my kids. I'll bring them next time, and they can tell you whether my wife and I are doing a good job or not. So I'll tell you we're trying hard, and I promise you we're making lots of mistakes and learning every day. So we try to do things a little bit differently. I'll try and ask, and we don't do this every night, we probably should. I'll try and ask my kids, not so much how you get on what do you get in this test, or what do you get in that test. I try and ask them, what questions did you ask today? And then I'll also ask them what I said to you earlier is, what did you fail at today? And I think if my kids are asking questions, if they're not just being lectured to, but they're engaging with their teachers, they're going to be good. And then if they're failing sometimes, I want that. I want that. And my daughter's 17, my son's 14, so a little bit older than you guys. I don't think they know yet what they want to do with their life, which is fine, but I want them to keep all their options open. So don't close any doors, and be doing well enough in everything that whatever you decide to do, you'll have some opportunities there. So trying to ask questions. We won't be mad if you fail. We actually want you failing some. And then start to put yourself in a position where long term, whatever you decide to do, you'll have room to do it. One more? Go two more real quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hear maybe the speech, but I can't know who speeches. And he says the play in the study, and he means make the study fun. And do you think it can achieve it? Just make study fun, because in China we have lots of classes, and we don't think study is fun.
All fun.
What are the advantages of this?
Well, it's easier said than done. I think if it's just study, and it's hard, maybe it's boring, maybe the word I use is tedious, that's hard to do. That's a lot to ask of you guys. The more you guys can understand what you're studying, why it's important in the real world, and how what you're studying is going to help you solve real problems, that makes it more interesting to me. So why do I need to learn this math problem? Or why do I need to be able to write well? Or why do I need to understand this science concept or this subject in biology? Why is history important? And so for me, where kids start to struggle is I'm just studying, and I don't know, why does this have to do with the real world? Why is this important to my life? If you don't understand that, it's not worth it. If you understand whether it's, climate change or trying to make the world more peaceful or trying to solve a cure for cancer. Or, I'm from Chicago. I'm trying to reduce violence in Chicago and make it safer now for kids. If you understand what you're doing in school, how that's going to apply to the real world, hopefully that makes it a little bit more fun, a little bit more interesting. Last one.
Yeah, I'll ask a little bit personal question. Yeah, I read from the website that you won plenty prizes in the NBA, and so who is your favorite basketball player in the NBA? And do you also think your method, which is learning by failure, also useful in basketball?
Great final question. I still love to play, and now my son plays now, so I'll go home and play with him hopefully this weekend. My favorite player now? Ooh, that's a good question.
Used to be Duncan.
What's that?
Used to be Duncan.
No. I was never Duncan. I was hoping to make some shots. Steph Curry's really fun to watch. LeBron's amazing. LeBron James. Yeah. I grew up watching Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Those are my heroes. I'm from Chicago. Michael Jordan was extraordinary. Right now, I love how Golden State plays, how they share the basketball. I love how San Antonio plays. I love those coaches. My Bulls are struggling a little bit right now. But I still love to play. And I always say, for me, basketball, I went to great schools. I had great teachers. But for me, playing basketball was actually a great classroom for me. I learned hard work. I learned how to be unselfish. I learned teamwork. I learned thinking about long-term goals and not sort of short-term gratification. So I always say for me, the basketball court was actually an amazing classroom. And I love to play, and I still love to play, and I love to compete and win. But the things I was able to do in the education world, I don't think I would have been as successful. In fact, I know I would not have been as successful if I hadn't learned to be a good teammate. That's what sports teaches you, is how to be a good teammate. And so I feel very, very thankful for those opportunities. This was an amazing session. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Duncan. Thank you.